Okay, you should all have on your screen now a slide which shows part of the old building of the Belfast Co-op. This is the section, I think, which was built 1912-ish, running through to the middle of the war period. Alongside it is the First World War Memorial, which is obviously what we're going to talk about. Or what I'm going to talk about, and you're going to listen and ask questions. There will be no quiz at the end. 22nd September 1920, this memorial was unveiled in one of the main entrances into the Belfast Co-Operative Society building on York Street. The glass panels on either side are photographs that Richard Graham took in the Orpheus building before it was levelled. The memorial itself commemorates 76 employees who'd served or died during the Great War. It took the form of an island pedestal facing the main entrance. The memorial had a 4-foot square base and stood 11 feet high. The front panel on the base bears the dedication in memory of those who fell, in honour of those who served. So that's the bit down here at the very bottom pedestal part of the memorial. The middle section was octagonal in shape, and it had 3 engraved brass panels set in moulded oak panels. The central panel, which you can see, although you can't make out the names, bears the dedication erected by the Belfast Co-Operative Society Limited in memory of those members of staff who took part in the Great War, and then is followed by the names of the 12 employees who died. It's important to remember that it's not a shop workers memorial. It's a memorial to the employees of the society. So that would have gone beyond the people who actually worked on the shop floor. 2 side panels here and here bore the names of 64 employees who served. The top section of the memorial is a half globe with a bronzed winged figure, and that represented victory. It's holding a wreath in the right hand and a flaming torch in the left hand. So that's the memorial as it was. The memorial was unveiled by William James McGuffin, who was president of the Co-Operative Society at that time. And this plaque and others relating to other key figures in the cooperative movement were recently purchased. By recently, I mean within the last few years. They were purchased at public auction and placed on the external wall of the Harp Bar in Hill Street. And the interior of that bar contains other memorabilia and materials from the original buildings. Richard will deal with those later on. What I'm going to do now is to talk about some of the men who are named on the memorial. So the first one is Charles Elder, who was born on 22nd May 1893 at Parkmount Street, to James Elder, who was a caulker in the shipyard, and Annie McKeever, and the family lived at New North Queen Street. Charles Elder was a grocer's assistant, and he enlisted with the North Irish Horse in November 1915 and was deployed to A Squadron. On 7th November 1918, A Squadron spent the day working as advance guards to 19th Brigade of the 33rd Division and came under heavy machine gun fire when they reached the woods to the east of Pot-de-Vin. In the ensuing fight, Charles Elder was killed instantaneously by a shell immediately after the capture of a village, and he was buried near where he fell. His body was later exhumed and reburied in the Dourlers communal cemetery extension in France. Pardon my French or Belgian pronunciation, it's absolutely terrible. Charles Elder was 25 when he died, and he was the last North Irish horseman to be killed in action in the First World War. He's also commemorated on the memorial tablet in Castleton Presbyterian Church. Second guy I'm going to talk about is James Ruddock, who was born on the 5th of March 1884 at Charlemont near Lochgall in County Armagh. or possibly into County Tyrone. His parents were Thomas Ruddock, a flax dresser, and Sophia Grimison. Although the family were from Belfast, they'd been living in Belfast before he was born and after. It's possible that they were visiting relatives or something down in Loughgall. James Ruddock was a shoemaker when he married Agnes McIlwain on the 1st of December 1908 at Trinity Parish Church in Belfast. And that's one of the aspects, is that he was a shoemaker. He's on the memorial. He's the only possible candidate from looking at the deaths from Ulster in the First World War. So either he had a booth or something similar in the store where he could provide shoemaking services, or shoes were left in for repair and were taken up to his workshop. But either way, he's classified as being an employee of the Co-Operative Society. James Ruddock held the rank of sergeant with 3rd Battalion Royal Irish Rifles when he was deployed to France on the 26th of August 1914. So he was a reservist before the war. As soon as the war started, he was recalled to frontline action, and he was posted to the 2nd Battalion in France. Sergeant Ruddock was killed in action near Le Cateau on the 13th of October 1914. So within a matter of 2 or 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks of arriving in France, he had already been killed. His 4th child, John McIlwain Ruddock, was born on the 21st September at 4th Street. So just a matter of weeks before he died, his last child was born, a child who he obviously never got to see. James Ruddock was 30 years old when he died, and he's commemorated on the La Tour Memorial in France. Agnes Ruddock was 26 and had 4 children under the age of 7 when she married Charles Edward Noble, a private in the Royal Marine Light Infantry at St. Anne's Parish Church on the 5th of July 1916. The pension card records that Agnes received a marriage gratuity of £56 and 6 shillings in October 1916. Now, quite amazingly, that would equate to nearly £5,500 in today's terms. So I'm not sure whether it's supposed to be 56 shillings and 6 pence, or if it was actually £56. If it was very generous compared to some of the other gratuities and pensions that I have come across. Moving on to Arnold Hayden. He was born on 3rd September 1892 at Skibbereen in Limerick to Thomas Hayden, who was an RIC constable, and Louisa Mitchell. In 1911, the family was living at Rugby Avenue, and Arnold's occupation was recorded as assistant grocery. So that would imply that he worked in the grocery department within the Belfast Co-Operative Society premises in Belfast. Later on in Richard's part, he will show you a photograph of the grocery department from in and around that period. The family later lived at Ashley Avenue, and Arnold Hayden was deployed to France with 14th Battalion Royal Irish Rifles in October 1915. He died of wounds on 4th May 1916, aged 23, and is buried in the Bouval Communal Cemetery in France. He is also commemorated on the memorial tablet at St. Bartholomew's Church of Ireland on Stranmillis Road, which I know Ricky Cole has photographed. I'm not sure if Jim Hamilton has seen that one. Nod your head. St. Bartholomew's, one for you to do. This is the gravestone for Thomas Wardlow. There's only one fatality on Culmouth war graves for a Thomas Wardlow. And this Thomas was born on 16th July 1883 at Eliza Street to Thomas Wardlow, who was a butler, and Margaret Ann Reid, and the family was living in Shamrock Street in 1901 when Thomas Wardlow Jr. was a labourer in a mineral water store. Thomas was working as a groom when he married Elizabeth Martin on 1st October 1912 at Bloomfield Presbyterian Church. And again, you have to ask the question, how is a groom fit into the Belfast Co-Operative Society. Well, at that time, the society would still have had a lot of horse-drawn transport, and he would have been responsible for looking after the society's horses. At least that is my assumption. Thomas Wardlow enlisted with the Army Service Corps and was stationed at the barracks at Ravenhill when he died. On 14th June 1915, whilst on a route march, Thomas, who is described as an exceedingly good horseman, mounted a restive horse that had just thrown another man. Thomas was subsequently thrown from the horse, landing on his head. He was taken to the military hospital on the Donegal Road, where he died of concussion and laceration to the brain on 18th June, aged 31. The military funeral cortege left from his room at Greenore Street and proceeded to Dundonald Cemetery via the Woodstock Road, My Lady's Road, Ravenhill Road, and then Newtonards Road. So it was a bit of an obscure route to take to get from Greenore Street, which is off the Woodstock, to Dundonald Cemetery. He's the only co-op man that I've identified so far who's actually buried locally, but then I haven't researched all the fatalities yet. Ernest Gowdy was born on the Woodstock Road on 21st November 1893 to Robert John Gowdy, a jeweller, and Elizabeth McKee, and the family moved across the river to Silvio Street by 1901. In 1901, the family was recorded as being Presbyterian. In 1911, the family was living at Agnes Street and was recorded as being spiritualists. Not even quite sure what spiritualist means, but it would indicate that there was a more humanistic rather than a religious belief system. Ernest was working as a live-in pantry boy at Campbell College in 1911. And he was still being recorded as Presbyterian. He enlisted with the Royal Irish Rifles and was deployed to France with 15th Battalion in October 1915. He sustained gunshot wounds to the mouth and chin during the Battle of Messines Ridge, being transferred to the number 30 ambulance train on 8th June 1917. He transferred to the Army Service Corps in April 1918 and then to the Royal Air Force in June 1918 as a motor driver. He was discharged on 22nd February 1919. So he's the first of the men that I'm talking about who actually survived the war. This is Frederick Ballantyne. This photograph comes from the Belfast College of Technology. Now we would call it the Belfast College of Technology. Frederick Ballantyne was born on 15th April 1895 at Harvey Street to James Ballantyne, who was a joiner, and Isabella Crockett, and the family lived at Altmore Terrace on the Craigo Road. In 1911, Frederick was employed as a clerk, and he was deployed to France in October 1915 with the 14th Battalion Royal Irish Rifles. The 14th Battalion Royal Irish Rifles would have had a higher proportion of men who were involved in white collar trades rather than blue collar shop or workers, factory workers and so forth. So you'd get a lot of clerks and apprentices and so forth in the 14th Battalion. He received a commission into the Royal Irish Fusiliers in late 1917 and held the rank of second lieutenant at the end of the war, which he survived. The final one of the 10 that are named in the memorial I'm going to talk about is Nathan Benson Griffin, who was born on 16 September 1895 to Robert James Griffin, a railway storeman, and Sarah Benson. In 1911, Nathan was an apprentice draper and he enlisted with the 14th Battalion Royal Irish Rifles on 24th May 1915, but he was transferred to the 16th Battalion, the Pioneer Battalion, and was deployed to France in October 1915. He was discharged due to wounds on the 23rd of August 1918 and was living at Lewis Street when he was awarded an 80% disablement pension in gunshot wounds to the right leg and the amputation of his left leg.
Nigel, I'm sorry, could you ask Michael Little to turn his microphone off?
Hang on, I'll just
turn the microphone off.
Yes.
Somebody's obviously having a...
Nigel, if you could just mute everyone, that would solve the problem.
I had muted everyone. See,
No,
I'm out of the...
yeah, if you just mute everyone now, that'll solve the problem.
Right, sorry. Where was I? Oh yeah. So he had gunshot wounds to the right leg, and his left leg had been amputated. The pension rate he received was 32 shillings per week, and that would be equivalent to £79 per week in current terms. Nathan Griffin was a founding member of the Belfast branch of the British Legion and was assistant treasurer of the Legion Belfast branch for many years. During the Second World War, he arranged weekly concerts for British and American forces stationed in Northern Ireland. He was living at Doch Road in White House when he died on 17th July 1962, aged 66, and he's buried in the Carnmoney East Cemetery. So this is where it becomes interesting. In April 1957, the Belfast Co-Operative Society reported that the war memorial from the First World War would be removed from the Central Drapery Department and that a new war memorial would be erected. So you can see here the advertisement, the notification in the Belfast Telegraph of the dedication of the Employees' War Memorial 1914 to 18, 1939 to 45. And that was going to be in the central premises of the Belfast Co-Operative Society on Tuesday, the 11th of November, 1958. On 11th November, a memorial tablet commemorated the BCS employees who served in both World Wars was unveiled. The article about the unveiling of the memorial says that it was in the first floor lobby of the Orpheus building. And again, Richard Graham will talk about that in the part of tonight's double bill. This was a bronze tablet. It was 8 feet wide and 4 feet high and contained the names of 213 employees. The Society's oldest ex-serviceman at that time was Nathan Benson Griffin, who I mentioned a few minutes ago, and he laid a wreath on the memorial on behalf of the ex-serviceman who had worked for the Co-Operative Society. In June 1990, items from the Co-op building were placed into storage at the firm's head office and distribution centre in a Carrickfergus industrial estate. Moving on to 2014, at the start of the Great War centenaries, an article by Rebecca Black appeared in the Belfast Telegraph Digital. And it reported that the Great War Co-op Memorial was missing and included an appeal from Erskine Holmes, who's with us this evening, urging anyone with information about the memorial's whereabouts to come forward. So this leaves us with two questions, or it leaves me with two questions. First question is, what happened to the First World War Memorial when it was removed from the Drapery Department in 1957? And secondly, what happened to this, the combined World Wars Memorial that was unveiled in 1958?